Hey guys, today's sponsor for the video is going to be Camel City Mill socks. These socks are awesome. Being in the military, you really got to find the right pair of socks or you get really messed up. These socks are wool, they're padded in the heel, made in America, no more sweaty toes, no more foot fungus. North Carolina is where the shop is. And also, I got a pair of them on right now actually. Boot socks, long enough to stay up on the leg, good socks. Make sure you check them out, camelcitymill.com. Use my code VeteranRevivals10 and get yourself 10% off just in time for Christmas. Thanks. Also, don't forget to check out my stuff just in time for Christmas. I love Rusty Junk Sweater, VeteranRevivals.com. Welcome back to Veteran Revivals. I'm Art, your veteran idiot. This is Scrappy, who's been put away for quite some time back in the lot, way back in the lot, simply because it's just not that fun to drive with the issues that we're having. The idle issues, it loading up, too much fuel, so on and so forth. That A9L is not doing us justice. So we ordered up this Holley Terminator X specifically for this 5-liter with TFI, and we're going to fix all of those issues. But that's why you tuned in as well, see if it's worth the money, and we're gonna find out together. Also, back in the corner over there, we got a door that has been sitting in there taking up room in my shop that we're finally gonna throw on. So this door over here doesn't whistle in my left ear and spray water at me whenever we go through the rain. So we'll throw that on, trash this other door that was broken into, and then be good for the day. It's gonna be a glorious day. Thanks for joining me. Let's get into it. In case you're wondering about the Bronco, it's still out there. We're still working on it, just waiting on a lot of the engine parts and all that business to get it put together. Also, we got some goodies for it that we're gonna toss in here. So stay tuned for that episode, which will be coming probably directly after this one if all goes well with that system. So what we're looking at with this kit is it's a full harness. It's going to get rid of all that crap on top of the engine and replace it with Holley's harness relays, fuel pump relays, and all that business. Fuel injector harness, nice. I have to look this one up. I'm pretty sure this is the power for the actual module itself. Here's the TFI connector. I ordered 2 of these because I ordered one for the Bronco SL because it's the same fuel injection harness and system for that 460. So they have a Terminator X kit specifically for that TFI as well. And I've got another one of these coming. That kit, that engine's going to be nasty. It's just bored over just a little bit, but with this Terminator X and that Bronco, it's going to be way more than anything else in that poor thing can handle as far as axles and transmission and everything else. But we got all the stuff. Hopefully you can wire in the fans as well. I haven't looked into that yet, but that is something that would be a nice benefit to tune it all in one little area. Wideband, coolant sensors, and air intake manifold air temperature sensor. So our screen, it's probably not any different than the Sniper system that I have in Earl. It just says Terminator X instead of Sniper at the bottom. So cool. That'll be nice to put in there. I don't think it'll ever get the 10.5-inch screen with the dongle and mount for this cluster in here. It's cool, I get it, but having the analog gauges is still kind of, it's that retro feel. This car is definitely retro now that we're 30 years old. So keeping the analog stuff, there's some coolness to that. So don't hate me for that, but this will probably be the biggest screen that goes in there. I think this is going to be the actual computer. Yes. All right, so those of you not familiar with Terminator X, this is an all-included system. You can tune it You can do whatever you need to on a laptop with this. There's also a Bluetooth module that goes with it, and you can tune from your phone. But this is going to, everything from the harness is going to plug directly in this. And this harness is made specifically for this car, as it's longer and it's going to run down through the firewall and down into the kick panel and then under that passenger front seat. So this is going to mount below the seat. This is your map sensor, so this is going to run a vacuum line from the back of the manifold down, get rid of that map sensor up on the firewall. We're actually going to get rid of that entire Christmas tree that's up on the firewall. I think it's playing with our idle. There may be some leaks. That thing is also 30 years ago old, and it needs to go away because we also have a strut tower brace at some point I'm going to throw onto this car. Yes, it's a factory one. Yes, I think they look cool. But this is the whole computer. It's a good system. All right, what do we got in this box? Here's our mount for under the seat. Perfect. Let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and start under the hood, get all the factory harness out of the way, throw in the new harness, run it down through the firewall, and then we can mess with all that stuff inside. Really shouldn't take that long. I'm pretty sure I say this every episode, but it shouldn't take long. Dang it. Two-hander. Oh. Oh man, she got dusty sitting out there. Also, I just drove this here from the lot, like 13 miles or so in traffic. So this is going to be, how do the kids say it these days? Hella warm. Fire. Lit? One of those, I don't know. All right. Get my don't burn me gloves on. So the salt and pepper shakers on the back of the engine, if you're familiar with these 5 liters, it's a terrible connection. It's not great at all. We're getting rid of all that, and the whole harness all the way down, and the A9L will come out as well. So it's kind of like weight loss. Not really. Not enough to notice. Actually, not at all. It's still hot through the gloves. All right, let's get this coolant temp sensor off here. And we're replacing all that stuff, so that's cool. That's nice. We can lose some more coolant. A lot of these connections on the injectors were not great as well, so that'll be nice to replace. Also, with this kit, I can go in and I can replace these injectors with 32-pound, 24-pound injectors and just have to go back in and run a tune on it. I'm not going to have to get a bigger mass airflow that's calibrated for those injectors. It's going to do all of that for me. Maybe later on we'll get like a Hyperspark distributor in here so we can control the timing and all that other business. But this is going to be nice to be able to upgrade these injectors without spending a ton of money on all that. Even though this kit was pretty expensive, it's like a one-time deal. Everything else is going to be plug and play that goes on here. Everything else that we do, if we get a bigger cam, we can put in the tune, we put a bigger cam in it. If we stroke it, all that business, it's all going to be set up. You put in your displacement, blah, 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 blah. I'll show you in a little bit, but it's going to be real nice. Real, real nice. Oh man, am I going to have to take this intake manifold off to get these? Oh, probably. Bummer, dude. That's all right. It'll be worth it. So we already figured out I'm going to have to run the O'Reilly's to get a intake manifold gasket because I don't have a GT40 intake manifold gasket sitting around in here. And I really did consider that this intake manifold gasket was going to have to be, or this intake manifold was going to have to be pulled off. So that is my fault, y'all. We'll get it figured out. The only other consideration I can think of right now is that we're going to have to get some sort of, actually, you know what, we'll just leave this mass airflow tube in place and we'll just leave it disconnected until we can get something that'll slide in here to fill this gap. Otherwise we have to get another tube of some sort right now, and just, I don't think that's a priority because this thing is definitely not obstructing any flow. The factory one has that screen on there. This one does not. It's pretty wide open. Yes, I need to get in here and clean some of this. This is actually, the surface rust is pretty brushed out. There's nothing that's going to come out of it. However, you see it's straight through. So this really isn't going to obstruct anything. We'll probably leave it in place just as a dummy. I think probably at some point we will also get a fuel pressure regulator, a manual one for this, and get rid of the vacuum on that side as well and just tune it into what we want. The factory fuel pump should be good enough for this system as it stands. We'll see how much load we put on these fuel injectors once we start driving around. It gives you a duty cycle for the fuel injectors. So if we're like up 99%, 90%, then we need to throw some bigger injectors on here right away. And if the duty cycle is low and we're just not getting enough, maybe it's lean, it's probably the fuel pump in the back and need a bigger fuel pump. That's the way my brain puts it together, but there are definitely some better ways to figure that out. Also get rid of all this crap in the fender well for the airbags and all that business that are no longer connected to anything. Evap canister, blah, 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 blah. This thing's always a pain to get off. You have vacuum connections in the back, got them in the front, got them on the sides, got them everywhere, all over the places. And I drove and tapped the air temperature on the front here, so the plug is down on the inside and the front. Can make it a little difficult to get. Alrighty then. Woo! Man, fuel is strong. Like I said, I don't think this dude was running right with this A9L. It smells heavy of fuel. Heavy of the fuel. Vacuum, fun one to get off. Man, the fuel is so strong. Whew. Actually getting dizzy leaning over this thing. Whew. Oh yeah. All right, keep pulling this harness apart, get it out of here. We are going to save some of these wires to keep the gauges working, and we'll pull that out of the harness as it runs across and in, so we don't have to have all the other stuff. It'll just be that one wire basically running over there. Same with the oil pressure, all that business. We'll cover up this intake manifold because, as you know, I like to drop stuff down in there. Fool me once, shame on someone. Fool me twice, shame on me. Perf Murph, this map sensor is going away. We're going to use the 1-bar that comes on that system itself. Later, if we put some boost, we'll have to change it up, but for right now, that'll do perfect. All right, I'm going to keep working on getting this harness yanked out of here because there's a lot of different connections and it's got to be spliced and pulled apart and everything else. So super boring for me, but for you guys, it's going to be a nice little tune and a time lapse. So roll that time lapse, Sheila. Came right out. No issues at all. So it's out. A big old giant snake thing is out. We'll worry about the oil pressure, coolant temperature, and coil as soon as we get everything else run back in. We can run our own wires down to the fuel pump as well. So all that stuff is kind of vaguely described in the instructions, because I think you can do it in many different ways. But harness is out completely. We're going to save the grommet off of this harness and put it on the new harness and run it back through the firewall. So that's what we're going to do right now. So we'll go ahead and, ouch! We'll go ahead and throw this fuel injector harness on, since it's underneath all of this business. Remember, folks, on forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Be a shame if somebody screwed that up. And this harness is all labeled. I don't know if anybody's ever put on a painless harness, but it's very similar. Same type of clips, same type of stuff, except for every painless harness that I've done has been kind of a pain. So don't believe them when they say it's not. Three, and finally, come here, come on. 4. Tuck her in all nice, put her to bed. Okay, so that part's on there. Now the fun part of fishing all that harness up through here and putting the new grommet on. All right, so I'm gonna force feed all this harness down in here. I think I can get it past the vintage air and we should be all right. The only one I'm worried about is the fuel relay. And actually we'll just unplug this for meow, maybe. Come on. There we go. That'll give us some room. Should be able to get the rest of us down through there with not too much trouble. I really screwed up my back laying underneath there trying to get this harness out. Now I'm a little cockeyed. So bear with me while I try and struggle through this pain. Actually, I'm going to take off all these vacuum solenoids that don't need to be there anymore. Because they are garbaggio. All right, now we can get it. Okay, those are all out of the way on this side. Got a whole lot more usable room now that all that crap's out of the way. Look at all that mud stuck down there. Let's start stuffing that harness through this hole over here. All 725 feet of it. This is a lot of plugs in a little tiny hole. Fat harness in a little hole. Forget I said that. It's almost all in there. So the problem with the vintage air kit is it's bigger on the inside, so it covers that whole area. I'm like shoving the harness down into it. All right, so that's all shoved in there. I'll show you that in a little bit. Basically all the relays and everything else will stay in that kick panel where the A9L was. And then the rest of the harness runs along the door sill and under the seat where the actual computer will be. We can't forget to run a vacuum line down to that guy. And we'll probably end up using this old evap canister vacuum to get it through the firewall and down to the floor, and then we can run a regular vacuum line back and under the seat. We don't have points, so we're not going to use that. We do need the 12-volt battery, and we'll run that across over to the other side, hook it up to that solenoid that's got all 750 of the other connections on it, and then that should be dandy, as one would say. I want to fish this harness underneath all this business here because I want to keep this area up above nice and tidy. That way we can put that strut tower brace across the top of here and it won't be impeding anything. Running the harness. Yeah! I feel like we're getting pretty close. I know we're not close, but I feel like we're getting pretty close. And that means a lot sometimes. My back is killing me. It hurts. Should probably start pulling that O2 sensor out while it's still hot. I did cover it in anti-seize when I put it in there, so we got that going for us, but usually they're easier to take out when the car's still hot, which I'm sure some of you know that. Whew. All right, what we got here? Map, not gonna use. We're gonna use the vacuum line. Ignition, that goes all the way across and down over there. This is, I believe it's the O2. Yep. Injector harness. Okay, so that's gonna plug into that guy down there. Start figuring out all this layout. This is a really nice harness, by the way. It's nice and, you know, it's got the things that you need, you know? Any of you guys got a topside creeper? Those things are fantastic. Be nice on here. All right, so we got this injector harness down here. We'll plug that guy in, stuff it. Make sure it's out of the way of the exhaust though. So I plugged in the TFI earlier, and that's gonna plug into this plug down here. It just runs across the same area as the rest of the harness. And we'll just go ahead and plug that in now. Push it down with the injector harness down and out of the way. And we'll go back through once we've got all this stuff set up and make sure that nothing is laying on the exhaust. Okay, what else we got here? TPS staying over there. What is this? Wideband O2s going down, and we're going on the driver's side because I had to re-tap the passenger side and then crank that sucker in there, so I am not going to mess with that being on the passenger side. So we're just gonna run it down that way. CTS, what's a CTS? I'm gonna have to look that one up. And then this is oil pressure. So all these will run down. Oh, CTS, coolant temperature sensor. Half retarded, so.
Never go full retard.
Bear with me. Anyways, we'll also run that down next to this coolant temperature sensor over here. That way we can put an adapter on and it'll work. That is all that. And in these plugs here will be our oil pressure and our water temp sensor that we will tap in and run a wire directly over and into that. So now we can zip tie that up all out of the way and then start working on the harness down inside the car and put in the mounting plate as well as run our vacuum back that way. All right, before we do all of that with the zip ties, I'm going to change out this coolant temp sensor, replace it with the Holley one. It's easy enough. So mine's gonna be different from you guys. I have it up here. I took this tube and I cut it and I bypassed the runner that goes across the intake manifold because I took the EGR spacer out and I needed to pull the throttle body up, and there was nowhere for the actual blade and linkage to connect. So I bypassed it, ran regular heater hoses, and then the temp sensor is just in the elbow here. I'm gonna take that out and put in the new one. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this seat out. Get ready for the mount. Get rid of this archaic VCR. Come on. Hoochie Wally, Wally bang bang. So it's gonna go right back on these bolt holes, but I need to run some wires and stuff like that back to the battery as well, which makes it kind of difficult to do if the seat's in here. Essentially, if you were running the wires back forward, it'd be easier to bolt it to the ECU and then slide it under the seat and just bolt it in that way, but I want to run all the wires in all the places. Whee! Where'd that screw come from? Oh well. So for this car, the fuel injection relay is supposed to be under that seat over there. Well, look, we'll mess with it. And then you gotta run a pink wire over to that side to bypass that relay on that side because it has its own relay over here. We'll figure it out. May just run a green wire all the way back since it's right there. Well, look, that's all I'm saying. So many wires. Yeah, lots of them. Okay, so we have made some progress. Here's where we're at so far. It's on the bracket, mounted under the seat. I have the harness running across and up the kick panel this way. The relays and all that business are up in here. I got to run this 12 volt over to ignition, and then this is for the screen itself, and that'll all go up and over that direction. So I can put that harness together now, put the grommet up in there and zip tie all that. Then the power runs back and across and then in, because the battery is back there, as you can see. And then I need to run this fuel pump hot wire back and down to the fuel pump over there, because the relay is not under the seat on that side, and I didn't see one up on here. There's a good chance it's in there somewhere, but I'm not going to continue to chase it all day long when it's just as easy to run it out the back. There's already a hole there, and splice it into the fuel pump power wire on that side. So I'm going to keep going. I'll put the seat back in and then start running the power and everything for this, and then we're getting pretty close to getting that gasket and putting the intake manifold on, so we're moving right along. And here's what I'm talking about with the fuel pump relay. I just ran the wire back and around and then spliced it right into the fuel pump. No need to chase down the fuel pump relay or any of that under the dash and try and figure out all that stuff. Just run it straight over. It's got its own relay in the kick panel there that came with the harness. So that's the easiest way I can think of. And if it helps you guys, bueno. All right, to catch you back up with what we got going on here. I ran AC power to the Dakota Digital controller for the fans. I'm not going to use the fan controller that's in the Terminator X just because it doesn't have an AC kick on. It has a AC kick off for wide open throttle, and then it has a AC kick for the idle, but it doesn't, it's a ground signal, so it doesn't ignite the fans or turn on the fans whenever the AC is kicked on, because
you thought wrong, dude.
If the AC's on and the fans aren't on, there is no cold air blowing through. There's no movement through the condenser. So I left the Dakota Digital on there and mounted the LCD screen and got all the power run back. I haven't hooked it up yet because I want to be able to cycle the ignition and find a ignition power source for the coil itself, so before we do all the startup and all that other business. So here's the screen. Here's the screen from my point of view in the driver's seat. I think it'll work just fine like that. There's enough cable for it to slide up and out. There's that Dakota Digital controller with the fan inputs and the AC, and there's one wire tapped into the fuse box there. The rest of it runs through the kick panel all the way back into the back and hooks up to the battery in the trunk. So now what we need to do is, now that all the boring wiring stuff is done, not even close, there's still a whole bunch more to do, we're going to get underneath and we're going to take out the driver's side O2 sensor and throw in the wideband, and then it has an adapter plug that goes on there and runs up to the harness. We'll get that plugged in, and then we got to get up in the top in the engine bay. We got to repin the TPS, and then we got to find a switched accessory power for the coil that is on during crank as well. So that's what we got to do right now, and then we'll be pretty much done with all the hard wiring stuff, and then we can start getting into the reassembly and tuning. I am so hot and hurt. Oh, let's lift it up by the oil pan. Want to hear something funny? Go back to the very beginning of this car when we took out the engine, rebuilt everything, and there's a part about the oil pan in there that's relative to what I was just talking about. Oh, come on. Under we go, where nobody knows. This is not the funnest part about the oil. It's the least funnest out of the whole thing. Okay. Oh man, every time I get under here, I forget how screwed up these panels are. Shoop, shoop-a-doop, shoop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. All right, here's the scene if they come out in the first whack. Oh, it's turning. All right, plug this bad dog in. Why is there 1,200 extra feet of that? That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was, except for now I have to get up. All right. Oh, alrighty then. Back on she goes. Make sure everything is out of the way. Vacuum is hooked up. Whew. She was temperamental. PCV. Oh, you Martha Faulkner. this vacuum, main vacuum on the back here has to come back off to get the throttle body or the throttle linkage around. Oh, frick. Oh, I'm sweating just putting this main vacuum back on there. Don't worry, they'll get torqued. Stop judging me. Beep boop, beep-a-loop boop. Yeah. IAC gets plugged in. No more base idle resets. None of that hot garbage. Come on, clip on there. Do it. Do it. Oh my goodness. Why? Only the lonely. So what needs to happen now is I need to repin this TPS so that it can work with this plug. And I have that plug over there. I just got to put it over here on there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, I guess. Throw this ground back in and then an intake tube. You know? I'm not sure I like this. A little creepy. We're running out of daylight. Actually, we're completely out of daylight. But we're running out of time. Because this thing's pretty noisy. The neighbor's pretty close. Alright, power to the coil. And then I think we're ready. I'll deal with the reference for the oil pressure and the coolant and the tachometer another day. We need to get this thing started with the tune. All right, so got this thing all hooked up, and I found a wire in those two plugs I was talking about before that is a 12 volt constant, and that way when we're cranking, the coils still have power. So I got that hooked up, it's in line. I looked over everything, everything's plugged in, everything's good to go. I'm gonna hook up the power in the back for the ECU, and then we are gonna run through the setup and set the throttle blade and go from there. Hopefully we can crank it off here pretty soon. I think that was the whole point of all this. Okay, let's hook up the power. Start. Cycle ignition to complete operation. Okay. All right, cycle it now. Oh, fuel pump kicked on. All right, let's give it a crank, see what it does. Not great, needs to figure things out. There it goes, now it's starting to figure it out. Everything looks great. Got no oil pressure because, well, I don't have a sensor. Let's take a look out here, see how everything looks. So I think this is just the cold idle. May have to back off the throttle body screw. See where we're at once it settles down. Sorry if you can't hear me very well, the microphone died. It sounds great. It sounds really good. It is idling at about 1,000, but like I said, I think we're in the warm-up portion of this. We'll let it do its learning, go through its thing, and then we'll see how it does in the morning. With a drive. Welcome back. It's the next day. It's actually deep into the next day because I spent most of the morning getting all the wiring worked out and getting the oil pressure, water temperature, AC kick down, all that business all set up. So what I ended up doing was I got rid of the Dakota digital controller completely I actually read into it and found out that this Terminator X ECU, not only will it control fans 1 and 2 as high and low, as both on or one on, it also, with the AC kick up that bumps the idle and senses the AC is on, it will then kick both of the fans on all the time. Whenever the AC is on, the fans will be on all the time. And once I read that, I'm done with the Dakota Digital. Get rid of it. It's all going to be a one thing. Holley nailed it on this one. So I'm excited about that. Hooked it all up. It works perfectly. What I had to do on this one, though, is even though I have the tertiary switch with the power trigger and the ground trigger coming off of it, it wasn't sending a ground signal. And when it did send a ground signal, it was on all the time. And so the fans would just stay on all the time, whether the AC was on or off, because it's run off of this pressure switch down here. So what I did was I wired in a ground trigger relay under the dash, put in a relay, power from the clutch, AC clutch, to the trigger side, and then ran ground out. And so that ground runs over, and the AC kick up is a ground input. So that's how I ended up running it. And then the fans were ground triggers, so they just went over to input 1, input 2 or output 1, output 2 for the fans. And it just works. You turn the key on and it works. Fans come on about 100, well, the first fan comes on around about 190. The second one comes on around 205. And then when you turn the AC on, the clutch engages, triggers the relay over to the ECU. Both fans come on full time, which is the problem we had with the Dakota Digital. Is I couldn't get, since these relays were a ground trigger and the tertiary wasn't working on here, it was just a pain. It wouldn't actually turn on the fans when you turned on the AC. So that module from Dakota Digital, I'm sure, works perfect. So it's probably just something that I'm messing with, but the way that Holley has it, it's all done and it's good to go, and I'm happy with it. So with the oil pressure and the water temperature, I ran back through the harness down here and depinned the plug, pulled the wires all the way out, and then I found the plug over here. It's this black plug here, red with white stripe for the water temperature, and then white with red stripe for the oil pressure. And so I depinned the plug, ran it all the way back through, and so it's got the factory wiring over into the plug. Nice plug, good to go, I'm done. So this whole system is set up, and I can't even tell you how easy it is to do the idle setup. It's so easy. There's a TPS auto set. You just on and off the throttle 2 times with the key on but the engine off on TPS auto set, and you're good to go. With that, it'll find your limits top and low. You don't have to sit there and try and get it below 1 volt or 0.9 or so on and so forth. It does everything for you. Also, you don't have to deal with the mass airflow sensor, which is awesome. The only thing I mess with to set the idle is the idle screw, and that's it. I am, however, going to have to get a plate for the IAC. This idle air control systems that Ford has, it's too slow. It can't jump back and forth quick enough to compensate for the surging. So there is a little bit of surging when the AC kicks on before the kick up takes control of the idle and takes it over. So you can see the percentage for the intake air temperature, idle air control, that is just trying to find, and it's too slow. It's real slow back and forth. So we'll get that plate with the little adjustment screws on there, and we'll fine tune it in, and it should be perfect. This thing doesn't want to idle less than 880. It'll surge on its own. It's just not good enough with that IAC, but around 900, it's perfect. It does everything it needs to do. And then when the AC kicks on, it bumps up to like 990, 980, somewhere around there, just to keep it going, which sounds pretty high, but it's actually not bad with this cam. So enough talking. Let's go ahead and see how this thing does out on the road. that computer, that A9L, whether it was doing its factory stuff and just wasn't enough for what we had done, or needed a tune or a chip or whatever it was, just nothing, absolutely nothing compared to how snappy and just outrageous this car is now. Still probably not fast, but as snappy as the throttle is and as much torque as it has, it feels really fast. And this Terminator X it should have done this a long time ago. I know we talked about it in some of the first episodes, but yeah, definitely should have done this a long time ago. Just cruising around with the AC on right now, no surging, sitting at a light, idling like 880, no problems at all. It's amazing. I do need to do a couple full pulls. I know I had some fun just a minute ago, but wasn't paying attention to the injector duty cycle or the percentage, so I need to pay closer attention to that duty cycle percentage and see where we're at with that at full throttle. It'll probably need some injectors, I would guess, but it seems to be doing all right now. I didn't almost stall it. Don't look at me like that. It's just getting used to this shifting. It's a little different with the Terminator X because it doesn't hang the idle like the A9L did. So as soon as you let off the throttle, it drops the idle down almost all the way. So you got to kind of give it a little goose right before each shift, or I just need to get used to the way it's shifting on this and we should be good. No problems at all. I can adapt. But just great system. It's awesome. Couldn't say more. It definitely worth it. It is a little pricey. I think it's definitely worth it, especially for the A9L, or I'm sorry, especially for the Fox kit specifically. So I think it is a win. Again, I'm blabbering. That's just because I can't believe how much of a difference this actually made. So let's get back to the shop. Now that it's got a good learn cycle in it, maybe we'll go through and fine tune some stuff, but let's get back to the shop and throw on this door because this rattling window next to me is driving me absolutely insane. What a fun little car. All right, so let's get started on this door. First off, I just want to say, if you do not have one of these, and I'm not talking about the Terminator X, I'm talking about this car. If you don't have one of these cars, you're doing yourself a disservice. These things are ridiculous. And although they're not as fast as they used to be as far as competition goes these days, it is just ridiculously fun to drive when it's running right and everything works. Even Zeus will tell you. He can't fit in there, but he will tell you that it's just ridiculous. But now to this door. So this door doesn't have a black strip on it. We'll correct that at some point. It's going to go along with the theme and everything else on this car. It's scrappy. But this door here, this is going to fix a lot of our problems. The mirror doesn't work on here. That may be the control down there, but the frame is straight and the door itself is straight and it's got gray panels. So we're adding more gray to the inside. At some point, pretty soon we'll be completely flipped over to gray and that'll be nice. But this is the issue with this door. Somebody had broken into this thing. This car has been stolen at one point in its life and it was recovered, if you didn't know that or don't know of Scrappy. But this door has been pried open here. And so there's those indents there. And as you can see, this whole upper frame rail moves, and that's because when they bent it out and tried to straighten it back, it broke and folded. So it's cracked and broke across here and broke right here above my fingernail across. And so it doesn't seal and it's just rattly and it's garbage and it needs to come off. The panels are falling off, everything else. It's just not great. And those little suckers dented up this drip edge, which I can't change out, I don't think. Oh no, I can. I didn't realize that just crimped on there. Color me stupid, I didn't know. But we'll get another one of those at some point. But now we just need to swap out these doors. and make sure everything works great. Power door lock doesn't work on this side either, so hopefully it does in this one over here. If not, that's also just a cheap part to place and put in there. It's just a matter of doing it. So enough jibber jabbering. Let's go ahead and swap this thing off. Out. Swap it out. Okay, so first things first, I'm the realist. But we need to take this window, roll it down so I can get the cherry picker on it and grab a hold of this frame rail. And then it just unbolts from the inside, inside the kick panel here. And we'll put that one back on there. I do have some new hinge pins that we may or may not toss in there depending on how those look. But that's relatively simple as well. So let's just go ahead and yank this sucker off. I was looking to see if it would be easier just to pull the hinge pins and then place that on there rather than going underneath the dash. And I think I actually will. That way we won't have to mess with all the alignment and everything else. So we'll just pull the hinge pins and we'll pull these off, and I can replace those bushings while we got it off, and that way it's all brand new and everything's good to go. So that's where we'll start. Real nice. Got it at Target. Was on sale. Oh, I know. You still got your Thanksgiving handkerchief on. It's okay. I'll take it off. You don't have to suffer anymore. Hallelujah. That row. There might be some regrets on wanting to pull these pins. They feel like they are in there. In there. Yeah, this is fun. Just a glorious pain in the arse. Should be interesting to try and feed back through. And by interesting, I mean suck a lot. Don't hit me. All right, let's get the other door. Holy mother cracker, this thing is way heavier than the Bronco door. Why? Jeebus. Completely unnecessary. Holy heck. This one's gonna kind of suck to start out with. Woo! Because the window is rolled up. We'll get the door panel off and maybe we can feed some wires and get the window down to hang it. Yep. I'd like to think you reach a point where you're not shocked by things anymore, but in this instance, I'm shocked. So I pulled the door panel off of the new door, the one that's new to this car. Everything in there was held together with self-tappers and electrical tape and wire nuts, and all the wiring was replaced with house wiring, like electrical extension cord wiring. Look at this crap. Whole thing replaced with this. Looks like they cut up an extension cord or something and tossed it in there. Sweet. So that's gone. Now I just need to run this wiring inside that door so we can hang the pins. But first I need to get the window down. So we'll plug in some stuff, hook up a ground, roll the window down, and then hang it. And that should get us where we need to be to get there. And then this with the, yeah, it's gonna take a minute. I'll be right back. Oh. 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 Ho, 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 ho. There is a stark contrast in the color down here. That's okay. We'll figure it out. It's okay. I mean, it's ugly, but that's okay. This door seals all the way around. And it closes. Oh. Oh, yeah. Minty. Minty fresh. Oh man, it is good to have this thing in a fully operational state. Easy. AC works, the windows work, the fuel injection works now, everything just works great. I'm really excited about all that's going to make driving this car a whole lot more fun. Just need to throw some tires on it and we can do some road trips, some long hauls, some trips down the drag strip, which I'm sure plenty of you are waiting to see what this thing will actually do. Don't get your hopes up. Probably not less than 13, but fun to drive. It's a great little car. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to take it around the block. Maybe 10 or 11 blocks. Maybe a whole bunch of them. Who knows? So, thank you guys for hanging around, checking out the video of this fuel injection and me throwing on this ugly, ugly door that works, is functional. I appreciate all of you. Make sure you go check out the merchandise again. Really helps to pay for a lot of this stuff. Love you guys. As always, have fun. Don't want to back into this.